functionally identical to mitosis. So those sister chromatids are the copies of the same DNA that was held together at the centromere. So that's to create germ cells from meiosis. Well, mitosis is pretty much the same thing, the first part at least. So it's prophase, metaphase, anaphase, telophase. So uh, the cell cycle. So there's multiple phases in the cell cycle. Cell cycle. There's the G1 phase, the S stage, the M phase, whoops, the M phase, and then the G0 phase. So not really a good. I can't really think of a way to basically uh, find a way to help easily memorize this. Just know that G1 is always first, and then SM. So S is the synthesis stage, and then G2 will be the post-synthetic gap, and G1 be the pre-synthetic gap. And the M phase, just know that that's mitosis. So, and then so your cell's cycle has 5 phases. I know I just wrote down. Uh, wait. Oh, I'm sorry guys, I messed up. So there we go. G2, my bad. So G1, S, G2, and then M phase. That's the correct order. Sorry. So G1 phase is where the cells are, just straight out the egg, not the egg. They're just created, and they create organelles for energy, protein production, blah blah, and that's when they start growing in size. And then before every one of these checkpoints, there is a restriction point that basically where DNA, everything else, organelles, stuff like that is checked for quality control, basically. Because what happens is that sometimes if the cell cycle becomes deranged, or if a cell is damaged and it still goes under mitosis, then that could potentially cause something known as cancer. So that's really bad because you have a bunch of random cells that don't even fit the criteria for a healthy cell, and then sometimes it can go out of control and you start growing a ton of cells, and those huge clump of random cells in your body could create a tumor. And then these cancer cells can begin to produce factors that allow to basically delocalize and even invade nearby tissues and metastasize. So that's really bad. And then there's actually a really interesting type of tumor called teratoma, which is where you can start growing like teeth and like eyeballs in different part of your body. So that's really rare, but a little interesting to think about. Now, there is a type of the protein called P53 that helps with this checkpoint. It basically helps, let's see here, is a protein that regulates cell division and cell death, and is a key factor in preventing cancer. So it's a tumor suppressor protein. So it's really important for checkpoints in the cell cycle. Without it, we have a bunch of tumors, and we're gonna end up looking like that, like those monsters from the Thing, basically. So yeah. Now we'll go a little deeper into uh, to mitosis. So in prophase, go a little on prophase, right? In prophase, the chromosomes will begin to condense. They begin to condense. The nuclear membrane will begin to dissolve. The nucleoli will disappear. Spelled that wrong. Nucleoli will disappear. Then the centrioles will begin to migrate to the opposite sides of the cell. Opposite sides. Sorry, I'm not a great typer. Of the cell. After that, the spindle apparatus will begin to form. Right. So the kinetic core of each chromosome will be contacted by this spindle fiber from the spindle apparatus. So in the metaphase, is only the chromosomes, the chromosomes line up along the metaphase plate, or known as the equilateral plate. It's where they go and line up in the middle by the spindle apparatus. Now, anaphase is when the sister chromatids are separated and pulled to opposite sides. So this is when they start to rip apart and go to the opposite sides. Now, telophase is where cytokinesis occurs. So the nuclear membrane begins to form again. The spindle apparatus disappears, and all both the cytoplasm and organelles begin to be separated and splits. Oops, is also where cytokinesis occurs. Cytokinesis occurs, and that's where the cell basically splits into two identical diploid daughter cells from a single cell. So this is for somatic cells or your body cells, right? Now for meiosis, it's a lot different. So in prophase 1, I'm not going to write it out, but the same events occur in prophase of mitosis, except the homologs that we remember before, they come together and intervene in a process known as synapsis. So these four chromatids are referred to as a tetrad, and crossing over exchange genetic information between one chromatid and material from chromatid in a homologous chromosome. So to give an example for this, so say we got a sister chromatid like this, right? So just by itself, it would look like something like this, and there would be like the centromere would be this, right? This thing here, right? Anyway, so you get another piece of let me see. Try to look at my notes here. Right, so it's called co-crossing over. So we have another one like this, and then their DNA will get changed up like right here, right? They'll cross over, and then it become known as recombinant chromosomes. So they exchange genetic information, and this is what causes us to have genetic variability. You know, why I have black hair and that person has blonde hair, that stuff like that. And then in metaphase 1, homologous chromosomes line up on the opposite side of the metaphase plate, so similar to metaphase in mitosis. In anaphase 1, the homologous chromosomes are pulled to opposite sides of the cell. This is the same thing for Mendel's first law, and then prophase 1 refers to Mendel's second law of independent assortment. Now in telophase 1, the chromosomes may or may not fully decondense, so that depends. And then the cell enters interkinesis, and then that's after cytokinesis, where they split again, basically, in mitosis too. So in mitosis too, they create uh, how it says the sister chromatids will be separated from each other in a process that is pretty identical to mitosis. And then the sister chromatids are basically copies of the same DNA that was held together at the centromere. So centromere here. Okay, so on to the reproductive system. So let's go over some basics, some absolute basics. So if you're a female, you have XX chromosomes. If you're male, you have XY. So pretty easy to remember. So your chromosomes, your sex of your human body is always determined by the 23rd pair in humans. XX being female, XY being male. So compare from X chromosome to Y chromosome. The X chromosome carries a lot more genetic information. So mutations of the X chromosome can often lead to a lot of disorders in the human body. So it's not something you want to happen. So what else? There is a really interesting for example, you have 22 chromosomes, right? If you get an extra chromosome, you can get something known as Down syndrome. So it's not exactly something you want to happen. So if you have a one less chromosome, that's also pretty bad too. Not as bad as having an extra chromosome, though. But what else? So I forgot to mention this, but in mitosis, it goes from 2n to create other 2n's, while meiosis 2n to n. And in mitosis, the homologous chromosomes do not pair, and in meiosis, the chromosomes align on opposite sides of metaphase. And that's when crossing over can happen. While mitosis has no crossing over, so a lot different. Gotta remember that. What else? So, what else here? Okay, so back to what I was saying. So the Y chromosome compared to X chromosome, they don't carry a lot of genetic information, but it does contain something called an SRY. SRY, right? SRY. Change the font here, so it's a little bigger. Right? An SRY. This SRY is known as the sex determining region Y. So, sex determining region Y. And it basically helps us causes the gonads to differentiate into testes. So, this is what allows males to eventually grow a penis, right? While females they have their whole other system, so a lot different. So, the male reproductive system is a lot different than the female one. So, first of all, they use the same hole to pee and to urinate and to release sperm from the same hole. While female is a lot different, a lot different. So sperm is developed into the seminiferous tubules in the testes. They're then nourished by serotoli cells, aka the cells around the area. Now, the interstitial cells of Leydig in the testes, they're what secrete testosterone in other males. And about this, so there's two big main hormones for both male and female. Males, it would be called uh, androgen and testosterone. Testosterone, did I spell it? Testosterone. Testosterone. Yep. Female is estrogen and progesterone. So these hormones are basically what gives us the features. Like for example, testosterone gives us more muscle mass, hair on the face, stuff like that. Deeper voice, creation of the Adam's apple where thyroid cartilage is. And females, estrogen and progesterone helps them, create, larger chests, wider hips, and more body fat. So yeah. Now I'm gonna go over the male reproductive system. So it's not as complicated as the female one because they don't go through a menstrual cycle. So it's gonna look quite something like this. Let me see. Let me try to draw a good picture here. So yeah, here we go. So this first we're gonna start off with something known as a say this is the prostate gland. So the prostate gland the prostate gland. Okay, so the prostate gland. Let me see here. The My bad, not prostate gland. This is the how am I doing this? Okay, to say this is the bladder, right? The bladder is where it holds your urine, and then we have little tubes that connects us from your kidneys, because your kidneys filters your blood and other stuff. That's known as your ureter. Now this is little weird little vesicle right here. It's like this. Looks kind of like this. And then let's take all your seminal vesicles, right? Okay, so your seminal vesicles, they basically help nourish your sperm, and they also help produce alkaline fluid for basically help your sperm. Yeah, that's easy way to say it. And then we got these little more tubes coming on the side like this from these little vesicle things down here, like this, like that, right? And then we got this more thing like this. These are just little things. These are all connecting your balls, by the way, your scrotum. This is known as the epididymis. So the epididymis is where the flagella of the sperm gain motility, and that's where most of the sperm is located until they ejaculate. And then they have this huge, big little organ, also known as your testes. They kind of look like mandarins, I guess, the little orange-looking thing, right? And then they have this little weird thing, it looks like this, a little ziggy-zaggy, and they're stored in the sac Pretend this is like a sac. Pretend this is like skin, right? They cut in the sac, right? And it's called scrotum. So the sperm needs to be kept in a pretty cool temperature, as around negative, not negative, minus. It has to be around 2 to 4 Celsius colder than the rest of the body. Now up here, it looks gonna be a little weird looking gland sac. That's known as the prostate gland. So prostate gland is pretty important because that's what causes you to basically uh, give it that alkaline property to cell so they can survive in the female reproductive system. Because in the female reproductive tract, it's very acidic, and a lot of sperm actually end up dying. Like about 99.99% of all sperm will die before even reaching the egg. So that's why, a lot of people when they're trying to have a baby, you should take some, multiple tries. So again, it's all luck really, because some people can get pregnant just from it's like super easy. So anyways, so this gland here can actually, as you get older, it actually goes and how it says, it starts to swell a little bit and enlarge, not swell, like enlarge, right? And that can actually cause a lot of problems. Like for example, there's a condition known as benign prostatic hyperplasia, and this, since that the prostate surrounds the urethra, so the urethra pretends the urethra. There's little tubes from uh, your thing, right? And there's also these two little glands here known as bulborectal glands. And this would be the urethra where the piss comes out, right? Piss comes out and then pretend it's like the dick, right? Like that, for example, right? So, and this prostate gland was starting enlarged. It's known as benign prostatic hyperplasia. And because the prostate surrounds the urethra, it can usually cause you to piss more urgency, and you're gonna wake up a lot during the middle of the night. Like for example, my dad, he has this. He likes to get up in the middle of the night and piss a lot. So as you get older, this will happen. And your doctors will usually have to check this gland. It's very known to have cancer. So they usually do this by sticking 2 fingers in your anus and just basically feeling it, make sure there's nothing wrong with it. So anyways, so yeah, the male reproductive system basically creates sperm. So that's the creation of sperm is known as spermatogenesis. I forgot to mention these bulborectal glands, also known as Cowper's glands. It's more easy ways to memorize that. They produce the fluid that's needed for to clean the sink, right? That's a little slang for it. It's known as pre-cum, right? And that's basically what lubricates the urethra and basically clean out any like other piss that's in there. It usually happens automatically when you feel aroused, or when you get like about to get ready to have sex, basically. And then the combination of that sperm and that seminal fluid from the bulborectal glands is known as semen. So now, spermatogenesis. So the thing for sperm is actually quite complicated. It's actually a lot more simpler than an egg. So there's a sperm head here, and it's surrounded by a little plasma membrane like this. It's known as the acrosome, and then like that. And then of course, it has a nucleus as well. So there's nucleus, blah blah. And then you got a little thing over here that's embedded with a ton of mitochondria. So pretend these are mitochondria, like that. And then you got a tail, just like that. Boom. This would be like the tail. This whole part here is the tail. Whole part is the tail, right? This part's the tail. It's the mid piece, and this is the head. So the head contains all the genetic information, and then there's also forgot to mention, there's like a centriole, like right here. Right, and then you see all full is mitochondria. All full of mitochondria. So, in the S stage, there are known as primary spermatocytes in meiosis 1. They're called germ cells or secondary spermatocytes. In mitosis 2, they're known as spermatids, and then when they finally reach maturation, it is known as spermatozoa. So, yep. So the head part here contains genetic information. It's covered by something known as the acrosome, which is basically a modified version of the Golgi apparatus that contains enzymes that help the sperm fuse with and penetrate the ovum, aka the egg, right? And then we got the mid piece. This part here is what helps generates the how it says ATP, adenosine triphosphate, for fructose, and this mid piece just pretty much just mostly mitochondria. Now flagellum, this part over here, it helps promote mobility, is what helps it move. So your body creates a crap ton of spermatozoa every day, sperm, right? Compared to a female, they only ovulate once a month or every 28 to 99 days. They release their egg around day 7 to day 14 of the menstrual cycle. Well, for males, they can create like up to like 3 million sperm per day, or like uh, it's quite a bit. That's what I'll say. Now for the female reproductive system, it's a lot different than the males, but it's also a lot more simpler. It's not the part that makes it more complicated, the male, is that it has a lot of hormones coming in play. So it's a little canal like this, pretend it's a little canal, and there's like a big hole like this, right? And then it looks like that, blah blah, and there's a little sac like this, and then you got the little fallopian tubes like this, and then you got the ovaries. So females have ovaries, males have testes. It's kind of like their version of balls, I guess. So this is ovaries, and then this is the uterus where the egg is released, and then there's the endometrium, is the lining. So and then during the menstrual cycle, this endometrium part gets sickened a lot, right? Which helps prepare the body for birth. And then if nothing happens, like if fertilization doesn't occur, this lining falls off, and that's what is known as, the period, where the woman. So it looks like blood, but it's actually just these linings, right? It's basically a bunch of dead cells. These things will come off after the menstrual cycle. Now this little area right here, this little area right here, known as the cervix, and this bottom part here is the vagina. It's where the penis will penetrate, right? Go inside. So next part. So now I'm gonna go into the fallopian tube. This right here is what helps propel the egg forward. So when the female is born, like they have all the eggs they'll ever need, like ever. So never create any more new eggs. Once puberty begins, they'll start ovulating, and that's when they start releasing eggs once a month. And then this uterus right here is also where this fetal development is, and then the cervix down here, like mentioned, is what connects to the vaginal cavity, and that's where sperm is deposited during intercourse. So the vagina is also where childbirth occurs, and all the outside parts are also known as the vulva. The outside part that you see is known as the vulva, and they're females. They have separate holes for reproductive and to excrete waste. So, the creation of eggs is known as oogenesis. So, compared to a spermatogenesis, it's a lot more complicated, I admit. So, oogenesis is that there's no, like I mentioned before, like you have all the eggs you ever need ever since you were born, and while you're still like being born, all your eggs have already gone through DNA replication, and they're all known as primary oocytes. So they're basically two end cells that have already been arrested in prophase 1 of meiosis. So during the menstrual cycle, one oocyte per month or ovum will complete meiosis 1, and this produces a secondary oocyte and a polar body. So usually this polar body kind of gets shown to the side, and nothing really happens. So one daughter cell will have a lot of cytoplasm distributed to it, while the other daughter cell will kind of just not really have anything really. And then this secondary oocyte that we see during the menstrual cycle remains arrested in metaphase 2 and does not complete meiosis 2 until it gets fertilized by a sperm egg. Okay, so it kind of just basically chills in here, basically. Egg will just kind of just chill right here until it gets fertilized by sperm. Right. Anyways, so the oocyte has two structures. I'll write it out right here. Okay, so it is known as zona pellucida and corona radiata. So it's a little. I can't really figure out a way to memorize this. You just kind of gotta know, right? So the zona pellucida it's like the part that surrounds the oocyte itself, the egg, and it's a cellular mixture of glycoproteins that basically protects it, and contains compounds that allows the sperm to bind with the egg. Now, corona radiata, on the other hand, is on the outside of zona pellucida. It's on the outside section of it. So it's basically like how would I say this? It's just basically another layer of cells that helps during ovulation, I guess. This is kind of it's not really I can't really think of a purpose of it. So anyways, so meiosis 2 is triggered when the sperm penetrates the egg, like we mentioned before. And then the second oocyte will undergo a second meiotic division, split into mature ovum and another polar bolly. So this polar bolly, like I said before, kind of just gets tossed aside and doesn't really get any cytoplasm. Now, the mature ovum is when it gets mature, with another, it's gonna be really large, right? It contributes most of everything to the zygote. It has DNA, cytoplasm, organelle, RNA. So you pretty much get most of your cells and everything from your mom. But for sperm, on the other hand, they don't really contribute a lot to the zygote at the end. They do contribute half DNA, because remember, you get half from your mom, half from your dad. And the 23rd chromosome is what determines your sex at birth. Now, so a zygote is the haploid pronuclei of sperm and ovum, basically when they combine, right? Alright, so continuing on. So now I'm gonna go a little deep dive down the rabbit hole of hormones. So this is gonna be really, really, really interesting. So the ability to reproduce in both male and female are under hormonal control. So before puberty, the hypothalamus in your brain restricts a type of hormone known as GnRH, right here. GnR. Let me try to see. Hypothalamus. Right, it's in your brain. The brain, right? The brain restricts a hormone known as GnRH, right here. It stands for gonadotropin releasing hormone, or GnRH, right? GnRH. This hormone is it's responsible for how to say it? So okay, this is before puberty, by the way. This thing goes and restricts the creation or the secreting of this hormone. So and then during puberty, GnRH triggers the anterior pituitary gland, anterior pituitary gland, right? Anterior pituitary gland. What is this? Can't spell right. Pituitary gland. Whatever. Assume it's right. To synthesize and release two types of hormones. These are known as FSH and LH. You're gonna hear this a lot. Alright, you're gonna hear this quite a bit. So we got FH and LH. Oops, my bad. FSH. So this is known as follicle stimulating hormone, and LH is known as luteinizing hormone. So you got follicle stimulating hormone, and LH equals to, let me say this, but luteinizing hormone. Alright, we went off the screen a little bit, but that's okay. Right, so to recap, before puberty, the hypothalamus restricts this hormone, gonadotropin releasing hormone, or GnRH. And when you hit puberty, this thing will get released. GnRH get released, and that causes your anterior pituitary gland to release these two hormones, FSH and LH, right? Which triggers the production of your sex hormones, males being androgen and testosterone, female being estrogen and progesterone. So now I'm gonna go over the male sexual development. So during the fetal period, the presence of Y chromosome leads to production of androgen, which is basically what helps starts puberty. And then during your infancy, when you're a child, basically, infancy and childhood, your androgen is really low because you haven't hit puberty yet. And then while you eventually hit puberty, testosterone, which is secreted by your testes down there, helps because increasingly, dramatically, exponentially created, right? And that's when sperm production really begins. So next is sperm production. Ooh, it's quite a long process. So FSH and LH stimulation of two cells. There's two cell types in testes. So FSH. Okay, I'm not gonna say the whole name, but just remember the FSH is follicle stimulating hormone. LH is luteinizing hormone. So FSH stimulates the serotonin cells around uh, around the area to basically help trigger sperm maturation or yeah. LH causes the interstitial tissues to produce testosterone. So it helps maintain testosterone on the other hand helps and maintains the male reproductive system. Oh, serotonin cells, by the way, are a type of somatic cells which spermatid develop in the tubules testes. So just remember that. So this testosterone helps males give us our our features, our secondary sexual characteristics such as facial hair, deep voice, increased muscle mass, and we have a lot of it during adulthood compared to before puberty. But it does exert negative feedback on the hypothalamus and anterior pituitary so that production is kept appropriate. So it's good because you don't want to have way too much of this stuff or side effects will happen. I'm not gonna go too deep into it. Like an example would be something like androgen insensity syndrome. It's when chromosomes of XY have female secondary characteristics due to receptors for testosterone being absent affected. So this could lead to some males or females looking like the other gender. So you can't really diagnose it until puberty. So you can eventually have people that kind of look gender fluid, for example. It's where okay, not gender fluid, but basically where let me see, androgen insensity syndrome. Yeah, it's basically where male or females will start to have more feminine features, like for example here, showing normal breast bone and skin hair, improper showing testes. So see, it's really rare and it's not something that you'll normally see. Okay. Anyway, so female sexual development is also way different because they had ghost ships known as the menstrual cycle. It's a lot more complicated. Okay. So ovaries are also under control of follicle stimulating hormone and luteinizing hormone, but they produce estrogen and progesterone instead, and that causes differences in secondary sexual characteristics such as breast growth, widening hips, and changes in their fat distribution. In the embryo, estrogen stimulate development of the reproductive tract down there. And then when they start to become an adult and reach adulthood, estrogen leads to the thickening of the uterus, also known as the endometrium. This endometrium becomes thicker each month in order to prepare for the implementation of the zygotes, right, of the sperm that penetrates the ovum. Well, progesterone is secreted by the corpus luteum. So the corpus luteum is this thing over here, corpus luteum. Kind of looks like this, and it's near the ovaries, right? It's gonna be near the ovaries. Right. So the corpus. Okay. Anyways, corpus luteum is basically the remains of the ovarian follicle following ovulation. So after you ovulate it, it's basically what the thing looks like at the end. And that's due to response to the luteinizing hormone, and it helps with development and maintenance of the endometrium. So the two hormones are right in charge of the endometrium, this lining, right? So a good way to remember is that estrogen establishes the endometrium. So remember that both sides means estrogen, establish, so SS. And then for progesterone, it protects and maintains endometrium, or progesterone protects, so the endometrium, right? Alright, now for the hard part, the menstrual cycle. So this is it's not too difficult to memorize, but just know that it's going to be a huge topic when studying for the MCAT. So, alright, so it's going to make a little diagram here where, say for example, it looks like this. And let's say this is one, separate them into dates. Separate them days like this. Say this is day 1, day 7, day 14, and then end of the month at like day 28, for example. This would be like day 4, this would be like day 21, it's like the middle. So the middle right here is when ovulation occurs, right here, right? The ovulation occurs right here. When the oocyte gets released from the ovaries. Right, and then we're gonna show up here where the hormones are gonna look like. So, in the beginning, right, progesterone is really low in the beginning, really low, from day here like this, low, but starts to increase once it gets to the last phase, known as the secretory phase. And that's when it starts to jump up like crazy, and after 28th day, it goes down again. All right, so, whoops. Anyways, whatever. Just pretend that's there. And now for the other hormone, known as estrogen, it's really low in the beginning as well. It's really low in the beginning. Really low in the beginning. Then it jumps up during the first phase, known as the menses phase. And it kind of... Oh, my apologies. I thought that was another stage. Pretend this is not here, okay? So, it's also really low here. And then during the ovulation phase, ovulating phase, known as the proliferate phase, it kind of increases by a ton. But it also stays relatively high in the secretory phase. Not as high as progesterone, but it's also still pretty high. Then it falls off after ovulation ends, and this cycle continues. Now the endometrial lining, pretend like each section is its own thing. So for example, during the first phase, it's still recovering from the last time, so it's really low. Endometrial lining is not that big. Then we see from day 7 to 14, it starts to grow a lot bigger, right? In day 14 to 28, it increases by a crap ton, right? A crap ton. And then it kind of looks like this. There's like nerves and cells inside them, blah blah. So that's why when they shed off, it hurts a lot. Kind of hurts a bit. And can cause period cramps, which are caused by your muscles kind of basically pushing down upon it. Right, so always remember that this stage right here is known as menses, proliferate, and secretory phase. And down this is a huge little layer down here. We're gonna just call it the basal layer. And then this section over here is known as the functional layer. Okay, so FSH and LH are both pretty huge in this. Right, follicle stimulating hormone, they facilitate the maturation of the egg ovum, and then the peak of LH will be, it's around 14 days right here. And this is when ovulation occurs. Day 7 to 14, around here is when ovulation occurs. It's where they release the oocyte. And the peak of the hormones of progesterone and estrogen is in the luteal phase. And that's when, if fertilization doesn't occur, then it sheds off, and then it repeats the cycle. Right. Okay, so I'm gonna go over each phase again. So we have this is the follicular phase, ovulation phase, luteal phase, and then menstruation. So it's pretty complicated, but we'll get to this guy. Okay, so ovulation has both negative and positive feedback. While in follicular phase, it's where all the main stuff happens. It's also known as where we see menstrual flow occur. It's where the uterine lining sheds off from the previous cycle from this part here, 14 to 28. So we remember before GnRH, or gonadotropin releasing hormone, increases the response to decrease estrogen and progesterone. So since that we see progesterone and estrogen decrease from the last cycle, GnRH is increased in order to cause the release of more estrogen and GnRH increases, so FSH and LH can increase, which causes the development of your ovarian follicles. And those follicles produce estrogen, which also causes GnRH, FSH, LH to decrease. Because once you have those hormones, you don't need GnRH anymore to increase FSH, LH. And this estrogen will cause your endometrium lining to start growing back, and it will stimulate the vascularization and glandularization of the decidua. Decidua is just another word for the endometrium being modified. So a female always has endometrium, but it gets sickened or loosened. I mean, sickened or shed, depending on when the menstrual cycle is. And ovulation is the second phase. It has both positive and negative feedback. So there's gonna be a huge surge in luteinized hormones right here, like as you see here, which causes the release of the ovum from the ovary into the abdominal cavity. So it's called abdominal cavity. So don't confuse it with the vagina or other parts of the body. And then the third phase, luteal phase, is when all the crazy stuff starts happening. So luteinized hormone causes the ruptured follicle to form the corpus luteum. This corpus luteum, okay, so the follicle is still the ovaries, right? The follicle, right? But it just forms into the corpus luteum, so it starts secreting progesterone. So during this phase, estrogen and progesterone are crazy high, which also helps prevent the ovulation of multiple eggs. But sometimes this kind of goes past, something gets messed up, and some multiple eggs will get put out, and that's how you can have multiple babies at once. So yeah, there's a lot of crazy stories of like women having 8 or 9 babies, like an octomom, right? And then next we have menstruation. So there's 2 passes that can happen after the luteal phase. So in menstruation, if implantation does not occur where the sperm penetrates the ovum and creates a zygote, the corpus luteum loses stimulation from luteinizing hormone, and then both the progesterone and estrogen will start to decline, and then your uterine lining will start to shed, and then it basically restarts over to the first cycle, which is the follicular phase. And during this cycle, GnRH will start to get secreted again, which causes LH and FSH to basically get secreted once again, and the cycle can begin again from follicle to ovulation to luteal phase, and then back again after the uterine line shed. Now, what if something does happen? Someone decided, let's have a baby today. So, if the sperm does penetrate the egg, it'll create something known as a zygote. Now, blastocytes will then implant on the uterine lining of the endometrium and start to secrete a type of hormone known as HCG. HCG. This is very similar. It's basically kind of like the same thing as luteinized hormone, but it's what's needed for the fetus eventually, right? It's known as human chorionic gonadotropin, or HCG. So now the corpus luteum will still be maintained. So HCG is very important for the corpus luteum because it basically keeps pumping estrogen and progesterone by keeping the corpus luteum in place. But eventually, when you get to your second trimester of pregnancy, that corpus luteum and HCG will begin to be start to decline a little bit, and that's where it gets replaced by the placenta. The placenta is kind of like this little sac of flesh inside the body that helps produce estrogen and progesterone for the fetus. So something really gross is that some people actually they'll eat it after birth. So it kind of looks like this, right? And then after you're born, you had to dig it out basically. And then some people will actually eat it in a smoothie, which is really gross. But yeah, anyways. So what happens when the female starts to get older, right? So yeah, you go into something known as menopause. So menopause usually occurs for upper middle-aged women around the ages 45 to 55. So as you start to get older, your ovaries from your follicles will start to be less stimulated by follicle stimulating hormone and LH. It's called follicle stimulating hormone because it stimulates the follicles to release ovum. So that's a good way to memorize it. LH, luteinizing hormone, and that causes your ovaries to basically like atrophy, right? And that's bad because if estrogen and progesterone is low, then you can't menstruate, right? The menstrual cycle becomes obsolete. And this has a lot of side effects on the woman. For example, they have flushing, hot flashes, they would bloat, gain weight, get headaches a lot, mood swings. So pretty, it's not good when you're in menopause, right? A lot of side effects happen. So, gonna go over the menstrual cycle. It's pretty complicated, but here it is. So, first phase is known as the follicular phase, right? Before puberty, the hypothalamus will restrict GnRH, and then during puberty, GnRH will cause the reduction of FSH and LH, which also causes the introduction of estrogen and progesterone. The luteinizing hormone will increase mid-cycle, which triggers ovulation in the first phase, right? And then this rupture follicle then turns into the corpus luteum, which secretes both estrogen and progesterone. And then during this time, the uterine lining will start to build up and prepare for implantation. So if fertilization does not occur, then the corpus luteum will atrophy and both sex hormones will decrease, which causes the lining to shed. And when lining sheds, it causes progesterone to decrease, which causes your GnRH to secrete, which causes LH and FSH to rise again. So it's kind of like a positive and like a feedback kind of way. In pregnancy, if it does incur, then HCG will be implemented, or human chorionic gonadotropin hormone, right? Now the corpus luteus will begin to secrete estrogen and progesterone, and then it gets replaced during the second trimester. So that's kind of the basics of the menstrual cycle. It's on paper it does seem pretty complicated, but at the end of the day, it's not too complicated at all. You just kind of break it down in parts. Like we have the follicular phase, ovulation phase, and luteal phase. And the main hormones we got to memorize are about 5 of them. So we got GnRH, gonadotropin hormone, which causes the release of FSH and LH, FSH being follicle stimulating hormone, LH being luteinizing hormone, which also causes the release of your sex hormones. Females is estrogen and testosterone, and for males is estrogen and testosterone. So that's kind of what I went over last time. So we went through the cell cycle, mitosis, meiosis. So cell cycle we have G1, S phase, G2, M phase. Right, just remember that G1 is first, G2 second, S is synaptic phase, M phase is mitosis. And mitosis is a lot different because it goes through meiosis, then it goes through production for non-identical daughter cells. Well, for mitosis it creates 2 cells that are identical to the first cell. And if it starts to replicate cells that are damaged incorrectly, it can cause cancer. So that's bad. So you got male and female. Male reproductive system create sperm, while females create oocytes or ovums. And then males they go through spermatogenesis, while females they go to oogenesis. So yeah, that's kind of basically what we're to. So new year coming up, we're gonna go through more stuff on this and maybe finish out my paramedic stuff. So next time I'm kind of going over through some stuff on what happens next if they do get pregnant. What happens next? That's known as embryogenesis and development of the fetus. So really complicated this part, but we'll get to it at the end, right? We're here to be doctors one day, and the hard part is just basically just remembering all the little nerves and blood vessels of fetal circulation. It's quite a lot of stuff that goes on, but yeah. So hope you guys enjoyed the video. I'll see you guys next time in some undetermined point in the future. Adios.